The family and I began reading the book of Mark a few days ago. We were in the latter part of chapter 2 this morning in our devotion, and it's where Jesus and his disciples are walking through the grain fields plucking grain. There's a story behind that, but and the reason why they would have been doing it. But I mean, maybe they were hungry at the time, who knows. But the Pharisees and the teachers of the law, they ask, well, why are you doing this on the Sabbath? Why are your disciples and yourself doing what's not lawful to do? See, it was against the law to do anything really on the Sabbath, and they got to pick and choose things they got to do. There's a story. I mean, they still observe. Jewish people, a lot of Jewish people still observe these things today, and it reminds me of a story, and it kind of shows what Jesus is speaking of or speaking against, really speaking out on. There was a story a few years back. You could probably Google it and read the whole thing, to where a power line had fell or something, if my memory serves me right, and in a Jewish community, and they couldn't even so much as make a phone call to the power company to come repair it until the next day because it was a Sabbath. And long story short, somebody got killed, and I believe there was a lawsuit, maybe, but um, that's kind of the thing, the legalistic type mindset that the Pharisees had whenever Jesus and his disciples were doing this, and he gave them a case study in Scripture about David, King David, and his men during a time of war. They were hungry, they were famished, they were getting weak, and they hadn't had nothing to eat in a while. So they went in the temple, the house of God, and ate the showbread, which wasn't lawful for anyone but the priest to eat. And Jesus points this out and he tells them, well, what about this? And he uses that to pretty much tell them in the end that they're getting it all wrong. He says, you see, man wasn't made for the Sabbath. The Sabbath was made for man. But he says something very profound right after that. He says, even the Son of Man is the Lord over the Sabbath. He's making a claim that he has complete authority over that day. He made the Sabbath. He's making literally that claim. You see, that points us back to the Genesis account, the creation account, where God made the earth in 6 days, and on the seventh day, he rested. He created a day of rest. Now, did God rest because he needed the rest? I don't believe so. Was God tired? No, I don't believe so. Jesus is making the claim right here that it was created for you and I because we need a day of rest. That's how we were made. That's how our bodies work. I remember a time to where we didn't, nothing was open. Nothing was open on Sunday. That's the day that we celebrate the Sabbath or observe the Sabbath. Now, there's some people that still observe it on Saturday. I mean, that's big debate about that, but that's not the point. The we're made to have a day of rest. You see, even in church, even on Sunday mornings, it's gotten to where, in large part, I'm not making a blanket statement, but in large part, families they get up, they chaotic, trying to get everyone ready to go worship on the Sabbath day. We get there, everybody's running around like a chicken with their heads cut off, and calling ourselves serving, but are we really, honestly, if we're honest with ourselves, are we really taking that day as a day of rest? Are we supposed to worship? Do we need to worship? Yes, we need to worship as well. But I remember a time where everything was done the day before, and I believe that's what Scripture actually told them to do, was to prepare for the Sabbath the day before so that you don't have to work on the Sabbath at all, so that you can rest. He's telling them in the latter part of Mark, he says, hey, y'all are getting it all wrong. This isn't the point of the Sabbath. The Sabbath is a day of rest, but it's become a fill in day. We can't pack enough into 6 days, so here's this extra day. Let's pack some into this and see, and call it rest, call it worship, call it whatever we want to justify it. We're wearing ourselves out. It's not a wonder to me that church attendance is waning. Maybe we should take Jesus' advice. Man wasn't made for the Sabbath. He made the Sabbath for man.